Because it is a Thursday, that means we head on down to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where Maureen Bader is sitting feeling a little bit lightheaded today because she got a haircut. Why do you put up with me, Maureen?
I don't know.
I have no idea either. I don't know why you put up with me. But okay. Maureen Bader wanted to remind a few people because we're getting to something in the state of Wyoming known as primary time when we actually have to start. And this, as you know, Maureen, is in many ways the real election in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, once it's decided during the primaries, the general election, there's so many Republicans here, it's pretty much just over with. You know, you show up and there's one person on the ballot for that seat in many counties, or there's a Democrat that has no chance of winning. So that's why you're pushing the tax pledge once again. So let's remind people, what is the tax pledge?
So essentially what the pledge says is, I, in the name, pledge to the people of Wyoming that I will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase or create new taxes. Now, essentially, what this does is confirm that the candidate is going to oppose net tax increases and the creation of new taxes, and oppose also the elimination of tax exemptions or deductions unless they're matched dollar for dollar, by a tax rate reduction. Now, what we were really interested in finding out is what do the people generally think about the tax pledge? So we went out and did a little bit of polling, in fact, and we found out that 65% of our respondents are more likely to vote for a candidate who has signed a pledge promising not to raise state taxes. So we were pretty pleased about that.
Yeah. Well, you would think more candidates would listen to that, but I'm actually surprised the number of candidates that have stepped up and said they're just simply not going to listen to that. And the reasons they cited, I sent you a little while ago a debate. The people over in Sundance, Wyoming, have a debate between two candidates, District 1, House of Representatives. And for some stupid reason, Maureen asked me to show up and moderate the thing. It went over well. I didn't get hit with too many tomatoes. I was happy about that. But I asked the question. I even mentioned your name. Hopefully someone would throw tomatoes at you. But instead, they just said that they were not in favor of it, and the reasons they gave that day sounded like the reasons everybody else who objected to it has given. Have you heard their reasons?
Well, one of the things that we're hearing quite a bit about up in the Gillette area, and just to be clear, we do have one person who's signed in the Gillette area, Rod Mathis, but I haven't had a big, overwhelming outpouring of signatures from the Gillette area, and it was just kind of surprising, especially when you look at some of the breakdown of the polling data, because you've got conservative Republicans by 81% saying that they would be more likely to vote for someone who signed a pledge, 56% of moderate Republicans, 53% of independents, and 46% of Democrats. But of course, I don't know how many Democrats are up in the Gillette area, so that's sort of an irrelevant thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, also when it comes to income, you have people who are sort of at the lower level of the income, below $40,000, are more likely than someone making over $75,000 per year to want their candidate, or to vote for a candidate who has actually signed the pledge. And, it's not really too surprising in these difficult economic times, and especially in a place like Gillette, when people are worried about their incomes, worried about providing for their families. The last thing they really want to do is get forced to pay yet more to these government agencies who provide questionable services to probably not them.
Well, now, Rod Mathis in the Gillette area, he's running for Senate against someone who's been there for a while, Michael von Flateren, who a lot of people accuse of being a Democrat because he ran for as a Democrat, I believe, twice, and then an independent, then a Republican, and then finally won, and now they can't seem to unseat the guy. Rod Mathis runs My Made in America store, and it doesn't surprise me that he would go ahead and sign it. But other people that have said no to it, including some in the Gillette area and the guys in the Sundance area and around the state, a lot of them describe they want some kind of wiggle room when it comes to balancing the budget, things like that. But I think what you're trying to say, though, is you really just don't want a tax increase on the people.
That's right. So one of the things that has come up in the Revenue Committee, and the next Revenue Committee is going to be, I think it's September 22nd and 23rd in Buffalo, so not too far from Gillette if people are interested in going. one of the tax increases they're going to be presenting a bill on is an increase to the wind production tax. Now, you got to understand that the wind production. So, firstly, Wyoming is the only. I'm pretty sure is the only state in the nation to charge a tax on wind production. Everyone else is just throwing money at them, like, for instance, the federal government.
Yeah.
So the idea is that what a lot of people are saying is that, or legislators or people on the committee are saying, is that what they would want to do is raise the tax from $1 per megawatt hour to up to $23 per megawatt hour to capture the entire federal subsidy, because the federal government gives a $23 per megawatt hour subsidy to wind production, wind farms, right? And we, the state of Wyoming, it takes essentially claws back about $1 of that. Now, what the Taxpayer Protection Pledge does allow for, though, is what we call revenue-neutral tax reform. And that's sort of a little bit, I alluded to that a little bit earlier on. So, if you want to raise a tax, like raising the wind tax, what you would need to do is then reduce another tax. Or say you wanted to get rid of exemptions. Now, they're also going to be talking about this at the Revenue Committee meeting in Buffalo at the end of September. They're talking about getting rid of a lot of the sales tax exemptions. Now, you would be okay getting rid of those exemptions as long as you were to reduce the tax in another area. Now, with the sales tax exemption, it's a little bit clearer than, say, the wind tax. So if you were to raise the wind tax, say, to $23 per megawatt hour, you would essentially capture an additional roughly $90 million in tax revenue. So what legislators would need to do in the same bill that the wind tax increases in is have a reduction in some other tax. I mean, say the coal severance tax. Now, obviously, right now, the wind tax is generating about roughly $4 million in tax revenue. If we increase the wind tax, that's going to raise it to roughly 90. Obviously, that's not going to solve any fiscal problems in the state. But
well, wait, I think there's beyond that, though. Okay, who ultimately ends up paying that tax?
The wind. Well, of course, who ultimately ends up paying it are ratepayers.
Yeah.
Because every single time, but so one of the things I know that they're talking about for this bill is that it would prevent also the utility companies or the wind farms from forwarding that tax onto families in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. It's bad enough already that we're paying more and more and more for electricity, but if they raise the wind tax, obviously then what they also need to do is prevent those companies from offloading that increase onto families in Wyoming.
Okay. All right, because it just seems to me that they're going to find a way to do that. But wouldn't you also, for those people who want more wind turbines in Wyoming, discourage wind turbines from being built in Wyoming?
Yeah, so one of the problems with wind power, I mean, they get big subsidies. The subsidies they get are much, much bigger. I mean, part of the reason why you have a lot of very savvy investors getting involved in these wind farms is because really it's a subsidy farm. That's what it is. And, the whole global warming thing and clean energy and all the rest of it, I mean, really you can see what I've talked to a lot of legislators, and I've written extensively on the global warming Armageddon myth. I see what they're trying to do. They want to punish these people for trying to not only raise taxes not only raise the cost of electricity for Wyoming families, but also enrich themselves at the expense of Wyoming families and families all over the nation, all over the world, really, because this is a problem everywhere. So you can see what these legislators want to do. They want to punish these people. But, I mean, punishing them by increasing the tax is sort of the wrong way to go about it.
Right.
If you really, really don't want wind farms, stop permitting them in the state. I mean, it's pretty simple.
There's a lot I can say out of this, but I got about 2 minutes left. I see there's one of two ways that Wyoming Liberty Group can go on the tax pledge. Hey, who knows? Maybe you can do both at the same time. On the one hand, you can go to the candidates and try to show them why their objections are wrong. But that means you have to go candidate by candidate to show them why they're why they're wrong about that. Or maybe have some big meeting somewhere. I doubt most of them will show up. Or you can show them the polling that you just showed me. Look, if you guys don't sign this, whether you like it or not, these people aren't going to vote for you. That would be the other option here.
Or alternative, like with Rod, I mean, he could really be pushing this against Von Flattern if he wanted to really try to capture a lot of the very conservative voters and younger voters and voters who are trying to support their families right now.
Well, see, in moderating that debate in Sundance, both of the candidates said, "Oh, I'm not going to sign that thing," and I thought, well, now what they should have done is one said, "Oh, I'm definitely going to sign it," and the others say, "I'm not going to sign it," and then let them fight it out that way and let the voters decide, especially the guy who says, "Damn right, I signed the tax pledge." I got news for you, Maureen. Even though it's on a 3x5 card, all the voters heard was tax pledge, no new taxes. That's all they heard. And I think you would have public support behind you just on that if a candidate was smart enough. Where do people find the tax pledge, and how do they get it into the hands of
their candidates?
candidate? Yeah.
So go to our website, wyliberty.org. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the button that says, oh, goodness me, that says protect yourself from taxes.
Right.
And you click that, you go, and you can see who has already signed. And there's also a link to find your candidate if you're not sure who they are. And be sure to give them a call, because you'd be really surprised how much influence one or two or five, you can get some of your friends together, call a candidate, and you can actually make a difference with that call.
Or else is what you tell them. Thanks, Maureen. I appreciate it.
Always great to be here, Glenn.